Robert Redford's story kicks off with raw brilliance, a rebel spirit, and a few quiet secrets that would always sit in the background of his life. Born Charles Robert Redford Jr. on August 18, 1936, in sunny Santa Monica, he grew up in a modest home built on hustle and hope. His father, Charles Sr., started out delivering milk before finding steadier work as an accountant, while his mother, Martha Hart Redford, was the steady heartbeat who kept the whole family grounded. She was the one pushing young Robert to dream bigger, to imagine more, to paint worlds way larger than the one he lived in. Even though his name would later shine from Hollywood marquees, his childhood during the Great Depression was far from glamorous. Redford learned early about survival, creativity, and the kind of inner fire a person needs when they refuse to fade into the background. He was never the type to blend in anyway. His wild streak mixed with a curious mind made him stand out from the start. He found joy in painting, drawing, and telling stories long before anyone in Hollywood cared what he looked like. He landed a baseball scholarship at the University of Colorado, but life wasn't done testing him. Redford lost that scholarship after his grades slipped and his focus drifted off, and he later admitted he was drinking heavily during that period, a messy chapter where he was just trying to figure himself out, searching for purpose, searching for direction, searching for something that felt real. So he packed his bags and took off to Europe, bouncing between Paris and Florence as a struggling artist who refused to settle. He soaked in every ounce of art, architecture, and culture he could find. Those days cracked his world open and shaped the way he saw everything. They taught him how to live freely and express himself with honesty, something that would shape every performance he gave later on. When Redford finally came back to America, he didn't return to the field or the old routines. He aimed for something entirely new. Acting grabbed him hard. He joined the American Academy of Dramatic Arts in New York, and it didn't take long for people to notice the spark he carried. His calm confidence, his magnetic presence, that thoughtful style of speaking, it all made him impossible to ignore. Soon he was on Broadway in Barefoot in the Park, 1963, a role that showed off his charm and emotional depth. The audiences loved him, critics praised him, and Hollywood took notice fast. Then came the on-screen chapter that would change everything. Inside Daisy Clover, 1965, got him early attention, but Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, 1969, turned him into a full-blown star. Starring alongside Paul Newman, Redford captured the world's imagination as the smooth outlaw with a conscience. That film didn't just make him famous, it defined a new kind of American cool. The chemistry between him and Newman was electric, and their partnership became one of the most iconic duos Hollywood had ever seen. Then came the 1970s, a decade that basically belonged to Robert Redford. Blockbuster after blockbuster kept him at the top. The Sting, 1973, reunited him with Newman and earned him an Oscar nomination. The Way We Were, 1973, with Barbra Streisand, became a classic that had fans swooning everywhere. And All the President's Men, 1976, showed a sharper, more serious side of him as he dove into political truth-seeking as journalist Bob Woodward. Each role revealed a new layer of his mind, his talent, and the edge that made him different. But underneath all that fame and power, Redford wasn't chasing Hollywood glitter. He was building something deeper, something real. He had serious vision, the kind that makes a whole industry stop and pay attention. His directorial debut, Ordinary People, 1980, didn't just impress Hollywood, it stunned it. The film swept the Oscars, grabbing 4 wins, including Best Picture and Best Director. Its emotional honesty about grief, family, and communication made it clear Redford wasn't just another big-screen legend. He was a storyteller with real heart, and he kept leveling up. Films like A River Runs Through It, 1992, Quiz Show, 1994, and The Horse Whisperer, 1998, proved he could blend beauty, emotion, and truth with effortless style. Each movie carried this deep humanity, capturing the quiet moments that hit the hardest, and audiences couldn't stop watching. But Redford's biggest legacy might not even be the acting or the directing. It was the empire he built behind the scenes. In 1981, he founded the Sundance Institute in Utah, named after his iconic Sundance Kid character, to uplift independent filmmakers. From that seed came the Sundance Film Festival, which grew into the heartbeat of indie cinema across the globe. Turning dreamers into directors and outsiders into headline creators, it became a home for creative rebels. People just like the young version of Redford, searching for their place in art and in life. Over the years, he shifted from being just an actor to being a full-on force for change. His love for the environment, his nonstop push for creative freedom, and his commitment to meaningful stories made him one of Hollywood's most respected voices. And even as he got older, he didn't fade. He transformed. From The Natural, 1984, to Out of Africa, 1985, his characters carried more wisdom, more reflection, and a quiet strength that came from living a real life. Redford didn't just exist in Hollywood. He built a legacy that feels timeless, shaped by triumphs, setbacks, and moments most people never knew about. As time went on, he kept shining just as bright. His performances in All Is Lost, 2013, and The Old Man and the Gun, 2018, showed that age didn't dim his spark at all. Those films highlighted his calm power and that seasoned charisma that only decades of experience can give. So when he announced his retirement from acting in 2018, the world felt it. A real legend stepping back. But even retired, Redford's influence didn't move an inch. After 6 decades in the spotlight, he never pretended to be anyone but himself. His honesty and curiosity shaped every part of his journey. He wasn't just an artist, he was a man whose personal life held just as much depth as the stories he told on screen. His love life told its own quiet tale, filled with connection, heartbreak, and searching for peace. His 2 marriages, first to Lola Van Wagenen and later to Sibylla Saggers, reflected 2 totally different chapters of his life. One was full of youth, ambition, and the chaos that comes with rising fame, while the other was grounded in maturity, calm, and a craving for balance. Each woman played a part in shaping the man behind that mysterious smile, revealing layers the public rarely got to see. His first marriage began back in 1958. Long before the bright lights and magazine covers, Lola, a sharp, independent woman from Provo, shared his passion for education, activism, and nature. Their relationship wasn't some Hollywood stunt, it was real, quiet, and intentional. They eloped far from the cameras, setting the tone for Redford's lifelong desire to keep his personal world private and authentic. Together, they built a family that grounded him, raising 4 kids, Scott, Shauna, David, and Amy, in a home filled with creativity, purpose, and big ideas. It was the kind of household built on heart, not Hollywood noise. But even the strongest love gets tested once fame kicks down the door, and Redford's stardom in the 1960s and 1970s exploded louder than anyone expected. Hits like Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, The Sting, and All the President's Men pushed him into global superstardom, and suddenly that peaceful family life was crashing into the non-stop chaos of Hollywood. He was always on the road, hopping from set to set, wrapped up in heavy filming schedules and the pressure of one massive role after another. Meanwhile, Lola was the one holding the house together, balancing the family while building her own impressive path, earning a PhD in American history and stepping into activism and documentary work. But the distance, the travel, and the constant spotlight eventually started carving deep cracks into their marriage, cracks even love couldn't fully patch up. Their marriage lasted nearly 30 years, almost unheard of in Hollywood. But by 1985, the weight of everything became too much, and they divorced, ending a long and meaningful chapter that shaped both of them deeply. It was painful for Redford, a moment that forced him to slow down and rebuild himself with intention. Yet even in separation, there was never bitterness. Both of them spoke with respect and gratitude, acknowledging the life, love, and family they created together, showing the world that endings don't always have to turn cold. For years after, Redford poured himself into the things that fueled him: Sundance, environmental activism, mentoring young voices, and creating art that actually meant something. He lived quietly, purposefully, almost like he was giving himself space to heal and breathe again. But life wasn't done with his heart just yet. In the 1990s, he crossed paths with Sibylla Saggers, a German-born multimedia artist with a spirit that matched his own creative fire. Her work exploring the bond between people and nature struck him instantly because it aligned perfectly with everything he'd spent decades fighting for: art with soul and a world worth protecting. Their connection wasn't dramatic or flashy. It was slow, steady, and powerful, built on shared values and real understanding. After years together, they married in 2009 at the Louis C. Jacob Hotel in Hamburg, Germany, in a private ceremony filled with warmth and quiet joy. It wasn't about red carpets, it was about spirit. 2 artists blending their worlds, choosing love, creativity, and peace over spotlight and noise. Their life together in Sundance, Utah, was grounded and full of intention, surrounded by open skies, mountains, and the kind of silence that lets a person finally breathe. Together, they shaped a life dedicated to purpose, art, the environment, compassion, and clarity. It was his second act, and it wasn't built on fame. It was built on fulfillment. Robert Redford's story was never just about success. It was about evolution. From a hungry young dreamer to a wise elder of cinema, every love, every loss, every shift added another layer to who he became. His personal world stayed private, but through his art and the people who walked beside him, the truth of who he was still shines bright today. Honest, human, and unforgettable. Surrounded by those massive mountains and that wide, open wilderness he loved so fiercely, Robert Redford finally found a kind of peace in the later chapters of his life. Living in Sundance, Utah, his days were shaped by art, nature, and quiet collaboration with his wife, Sybil Zagars, whose environmental artwork carried a calm, spiritual power. Redford often said her creativity brought him balance, grounding him in ways the Hollywood world never could. Together, they created a life that mixed beauty with purpose, a life where every sunrise felt like a clean, fresh start. But behind that peaceful picture, there was a truth far heavier than anyone imagined. A truth that eventually surfaced and stunned the world. Beneath Redford's calm smile and silver-haired composure were old, emotional scars that never fully closed. He wasn't just a movie star, he was a symbol of integrity and quiet strength, a man people believed had everything under control. Yet behind that polished public image lived someone carrying layers of grief and guilt that rarely showed. And when his wife gently opened up about the depth of his inner struggles, the world realized how much pain he had kept hidden all those years. Redford once said, "I wanted to be someone who mattered," and that one line exposed the whole truth of his spirit, the ambition, the weight he carried, and the pressure he put on himself. But that same drive came tied to heartbreak. One of the hardest emotional blows of his life came early on, involving the loss of his first child, something he almost never spoke about. When he did, his words were raw and honest, admitting that some wounds don't disappear. They just become part of who you are. That silent pain reshaped everything. How he saw fame, how he valued family, how he moved through the world. Behind every flashing camera, behind every charming grin on a red carpet, he was a man carrying a quiet heaviness. Even during the peak of the 1960s and 1970s, with classics like Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, The Sting, and All the President's Men, the success couldn't fill the emotional gaps inside him. The fame that made him a global icon also created distance from the people he cared about most. He once confessed, "Fame is a mask that can suffocate you," admitting that all the attention could make a person forget who they really are. Adored by millions yet feeling isolated, Redford lived in that strange middle ground where applause didn't fix the loneliness. The perfectionist inside him wanted control over everything, his career, his image, his personal world. But life kept reminding him that control is something no one truly has. His first marriage to Lola Van Wagenen, full of love and the family they built together, eventually cracked under the weight of emotional strain, non-stop work, and the pressure of being in the public eye. Looking back, Redford said softly, "We grew in different directions. Sometimes love isn't enough to keep two people together." Their divorce in 1985 was painful, but it became a turning point, a moment that forced him to face the truth that peace wasn't something fame could ever buy. For years afterward, he searched for that peace through activism, filmmaking, and staying endlessly busy, even while carrying the same quiet ache inside. He kept working, kept creating, kept fighting for causes bigger than himself, hoping each new chapter would bring him closer to the calm he'd been chasing all his life. Then came Sybil Zagars, an artist whose love for nature and creativity matched Redford's soul in the most natural way. Their connection was deeper than romance. They shared a whole outlook on life, a way of seeing the world through purpose and expression. Their bond stood on trust, respect, and the need to create something meaningful, both separately and together. In 2009, after years side by side, they married quietly in Hamburg, Germany, surrounded only by the people who truly mattered. For a moment, it looked like Redford had finally found the calm he'd been searching for. Peace, love, and stillness, wrapped into one beautiful chapter. Their life in Sundance flowed gently, like art blending into nature, and every mountain breeze felt like a reminder that healing was possible. But even in that quiet place, the past never fully faded. It just settled deeper into the background. The emotional weight he carried for years stayed tucked away, unseen by the public but familiar to those close to him. Friends later shared that he sometimes faced waves of heavy emotions and quiet exhaustion, shaped by old losses, pressure, and the responsibility of being seen as a living legend. His wife explained that he dealt with difficult emotional periods, normal human struggles that fame couldn't erase and success couldn't hide. Behind the legend was a man of real depth, a man who gave the world his art, his vision, and his heart, even on days when his own spirit felt worn. People saw the icon, the calm, golden Hollywood hero, but his inner circle saw something rawer, more human, and far more tender. He was strong, but he was still human, and his life had shaped him in ways no spotlight could ever show. After his passing, his wife spoke with emotion, explaining truths he rarely shared about the weight he carried and the strength he showed every single day. She said he hid it behind his discipline, behind the work he loved, behind that quiet focus he was known for, and her words touched millions. Those closest to him knew him not just as an actor or filmmaker, but as a man who lived with intention, precision, and a deep sense of responsibility. Redford always pushed himself to deliver excellence, expecting the same dedication from himself that he gave to every role, every frame, and every cause he stood behind. But that discipline came with a cost. It made him his own hardest critic. In private moments, he reportedly confided to a trusted friend, "I always felt like I wasn't enough," a line that revealed just how deeply he cared about everything he created. That quiet tension between his private worries and his calm public presence shaped much of his life, even if the world never noticed. He carried himself with grace, always thoughtful, always grounded, even when life felt heavier than anyone knew. When his wife later shared the depth of his emotional load, the world was shocked, but also moved, because the truth didn't diminish him at all. If anything, it made people see him with even more respect. Fans realized that behind the cinematic magic was a real person, someone who lived through deep challenges and still showed up with heart, talent, and purpose. The revelation didn't weaken his legacy. It made it richer, showing that Robert Redford's greatness came not just from talent, but from everything he fought through and everything he chose to rise above. His story became bigger than Hollywood history. It turned into a mirror of what it really means to carry quiet struggles while standing under bright lights. His life proved that even legends wrestle with doubts, guilt, and old wounds that don't just disappear. Redford once said, "Pain teaches you what joy really is. You can't understand one without the other." And now those words hit with a whole new truth. That line feels like a confession, raw, honest, and unforgettable. It shows his artistry wasn't just talent, it was lived experience. Every subtle look on screen, every soft moment, every quiet breath carried real emotion, the kind that came from a life filled with highs and heartbreak. His hidden weight shaped his performances, giving them depth that pulled people in without him trying. That quiet fire in his eyes made audiences feel something deeper than dialogue ever could. Then came September 16th, 2025, a morning the world will always remember. News broke that Robert Redford, the legend, the dreamer, the man who changed independent cinema forever, had passed away peacefully in his sleep at his home in Sundance, Utah, at 89 years old. Hollywood froze. Fans everywhere felt the loss instantly, like an era had officially closed. Millions mourned the man whose grace, intelligence, and honesty shaped generations of creators and dreamers. His family shared that he spent his final days wrapped in love, resting peacefully in the mountain retreat that had always been his safe place. And in a way, it was perfect. Sundance, the land that carried his spirit, his vision, and his legacy, became the place of his final farewell. The storyteller who gave others a voice found eternal rest in the world he helped build. Tributes poured in from everywhere, actors calling him gracious and wise, directors praising him for reshaping American cinema and lifting independent filmmakers before anyone else cared. Environmental advocates honored him as a leader who used his spotlight to protect the earth and inspire others to do the same. Politicians, artists, and fans from every corner came together, each person remembering the moment his work touched their lives. His passing wasn't just the end of a career, it felt like the closing of a golden chapter in American culture. Robert Redford embodied everything timeless about art, dignity, and authenticity. Even now, his legacy glows like a sunset fading behind the mountains, quiet, powerful, eternal. His story reminds us that even the strongest hearts can carry invisible weight, and even the brightest stars leave shadows that only make their light shine harder. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Hit that like button if his story moved you. Subscribe to RumorFame for more legendary deep dives, share this with someone who loves cinema, and I'll see you on the next one.